So shall we start, sir?
Ashish Kumar, sir, can we start?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Please go ahead, sir. Professor Ramakrishna.
Good afternoon, one and all who are present here. I'm Dr. Ramakrishna, faculty of IBS Hyderabad. I take this opportunity to invite you all to our closing ceremony. It is a valedictory session of ICBF 2022. This afternoon, we have a delighted guest, Sri Ashish Kumar Chauhan ji. Along with him, we have Sri Valedictory ji, Sri Shailajan ji, Sri D. Satish ji, and Satish Kumar ji to celebrate our success of this event, to guide us in the future events, and to steer and to cheer us. Now I request Satish Kumar, Dr. Satish Kumar, to please elicit the journey of ICBF 2022. Satish sir, please go ahead.
Thank you, Professor Ramakrishna, for the opportunity. Dear delegates, my name is Satish Kumar, and a very warm welcome and good afternoon to you all. Shri Ashish Kumar Chauhan ji, MD and CEO of the Bombay Stock Exchange, Professor Valedictory, Senior Advisor IFHE Group, Professor C.S. Shailajan, Dean Academics IBS, Professor D. Satish, Area Coordinator, Department of Finance, my fellow conference co-chairs, Professor Ramakrishna, Professor Satish Tiwari, Professor Bhanu Sirisha, and Professor Naseem Ahmed, conference participants, my colleagues, and research scholars. On behalf of the Department of Finance and Accounting, I take this opportunity to welcome you all to the valedictory session of the 15th International Conference on Business and Finance, organized by the Department of Finance, IBS, Hyderabad. My talk in this session of the valedictory is more about the summary of the conference. In a nutshell, the list of the important events that happened before the conference, during the conference, and some important future announcements to be made today after the conference. The ICBF is the flagship event of IBS Hyderabad, having successfully conducted 14 editions of ICBF in collaboration with national and international universities of high repute. We have gained useful experience and visibility among B schools and a reputation of working with top academicians and industry experts. Ever since its first edition, the conference was organized in association with international universities like Philadelphia University, Oklahoma State University, and other prestigious Indian research organizations like Gokhale Institute of Politics and Economics, Indian Institute of Capital Markets, among others. The conference is well attended by academicians, professionals, practitioners, and research scholars from India and abroad. During the conference, we hosted top academicians and industry experts from diverse streams, and we believe that we were able to provide a platform to the audience for presenting their research works. ICBF believes in maintaining a broad theme, contemporary and future trends in business and finance, to encourage sharing of unconstrained research ideas from the individual domains of business and finance, and keep contributing to the knowledge. It's a moment of pride for all of us to know that the ICBF received a total of 195 papers, out of which we could accept only 130 papers for presentation. During the last 3 days, a total of 114 presentations were made in the conference, including 12 papers from 9 foreign countries such as the US, Australia, France, and Taiwan, just to mention a few. From India, we had the papers presenter from top institutions such as IIM Bangalore, IIM Kozhikode, IIM Raipur, IIT Kharagpur, IIT Roorkee, SAPMI Manipal, among others. During the last 3 days of the conference, we conducted 26 sessions on important finance disciplines such as corporate finance, asset pricing, market microstructure, fintech and crypto assets, sustainable finance, IFRS and forensic accounting, monetary economics, and institutions, which provided insights about the past, present, and future perspective of these areas. We also had a special session for case study presentations and a dedicated session for the doctoral students to present their thesis proposals. I'm happy to inform you all, and you must be knowing it by now, that all our sessions had two chairs, one external chair and one internal chair, to provide a quality feedback to the presenters. Apart from our highly competent internal chairs, our external chairs come from reputed institutions such as IIM Calcutta, IIM Kozhikode, IIM Raipur, IIM Kashipur, IIT Kharagpur, IFT Kolkata, NMIMS Hyderabad, and GIM Goa, just to mention a few. We hope that all the presenters must have received a constructive feedback on their research papers and case studies. We want to inform all the participants of the conference that apart from the feedback given by the session chairs during the presentations, we will also share the feedback from the discussants who are experts in that area with all the participants very soon. It will help them to improve their paper and publish in good journals. Now, when I'm talking about good journal and publication, the ICBF is proud to inform that we have a tie-up with 8 journals of international repute belonging to ABDC category Scopus and UGC care list. The journals that had a tie-up with the ICBF are Journal of Public Affairs, ABDC-B and Scopus, International Journal of Emerging Markets, ABDC-B and Scopus, International Journal of Economic Policy in Emerging Economies, ABDC-C and Scopus, Journal of Sustainable Finance and Investment, Scopus, Journal of Economic and Administrative Sciences, ABDC-C, IUP Journal of Accounting Research and Audit Practices, ABDC-C and UGC care list, IUP Journal of Corporate Governance, ABDC-C, and finally, the Case Folio, IUP Journal of Management Case Studies, UGC care list. The eligible papers from the conference, based on their quality and merit, will be considered for publication in these journals in consultation with the editors of these journals. We'll get in touch with the respective authors of the selected papers very soon in this regard. Another important USP of our conference is that we are offering a series of best paper awards today. For the kind information of all the stakeholders, I would like to emphasize that the selection of the best paper award was a very fair process in which many internal and external faculty members reviewed a number of blind papers, and the average scores were reached at to select the top 3 papers, 1 top case and 1 top thesis proposal. All faculty members of the finance department were involved in reviewing and nominating the best papers. Very soon we are going to announce the 3 best paper awards, 1 best case award and 1 best proposal award. It will not be out of scope to mention here that it was a challenging task for our review team to identify the best papers. Having received the quality articles from India and abroad, it was really a tough task to identify only 3 best papers, since others who didn't receive the awards were not very far behind in terms of their quality. However, for the sake of transparency and fairness, we are going ahead with the decision of the independent review committee. The conference organizing team and the Department of Finance take pride in informing you that we had Professor Ashima Goyal, the Professor Emeritus at IGADR and the member of the Monetary Policy Committee of the Reserve Bank of India as an inaugural keynote speaker. And I'm glad to share that Shri Ashish Kumar Chauhan ji, the MD and CEO of the Bombay Stock Exchange, is our chief guest for the valedictory session today. Welcome, sir. Sir, I'm very sure that the participants of the conference would benefit immensely from your talk. Another striking feature of our conference was that we had a special session from eminent professors from India and abroad who interacted with the participants on contemporary topics including case writing, research, and publication. Just to summarize the key sessions taken by our distinguished speakers, Professor Pat Obai, the White Lodging Professor of Finance, Purdue University, delivered a talk on contemporary research in the area of finance. Professor Sabri Bobekar, EM Normandy Business School, Paris, France, delivered a talk on what makes papers publishable in top-tier journals. Professor Ramkumar Kakani, IIM Kozhikode, delivered a lecture on economic rationale behind prolonged decoupling of real economy with its indicators. Professor Nupur Pawanbang, Associate Director at the Center for Family Enterprise, ISB Hyderabad, talked about share pledging and its consequences. Finally, we had a session, the session which couldn't be held on case writing because of his poor health, but we would like to acknowledge Professor Ved Purishwar's contribution to the conference. In that regard, I wish to inform you that IBS Hyderabad is one of the first institutes in India which follow a case study as its primary method of teaching. Finally, one important piece of information before I conclude. The certificates for all the presenters, session chairs, best papers, moderators, discussants, and participants will be shared with all the stakeholders through email. You may kindly access the drive link through your registered email ID and download your respective certificates. And I'm happy to acknowledge the ICBF 2022 was sponsored by Punjab National Bank, Platinum sponsor, McGraw Hill Publishers, Diamond sponsor, HDFC Bank and Kotak Mahindra Bank are gold sponsors. To conclude, I believe we were able to deliver what we promised to all the stakeholders of the conference. Thank you and best wishes. Thank you, everyone.
Dr. Satish, thank you very much. Now, I request Professor Shailajan sir to share his feedback, review, and future directions with our presenters, participants, faculty members. Professor Shailajan, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Ramakrishna. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
So very good afternoon, distinguished chief guest, Mr. Ashish Kumar Chauhan ji, Managing Director and CEO of PSE, Professor Valedictory, Professor D. Sadish, Senior Professor, Professor Nagireddy, distinguished delegates, faculty, research scholars, and students. At the outset, let me thank and appreciate all the paper presenters and delegates for actively participating throughout the conference sessions. I have attended many of the sessions. I could see the active participation from all the paper presenters and other delegates. I'm sure you have immensely benefited from the discussions and feedback received from session chairs and other delegates. I really appreciate the team ICBF, 15th ICBF team, for arranging very enriching session by Professor Ashima Goyal, member MPC of RBI, and excellent sessions by Dr. Ram Kakani, Dr. Obipat, Dr. Sabri Babakar, and Dr. Nubar Bang. One of the additional attractions of 15th ICBF was a special track on thesis proposal presentation. I could attend that session completely. I could see that each presenter got around 40 minutes for presentation and a detailed feedback from session chairs like senior professor like Nagireddy. And they have given both Professor Nagireddy and other session chairs have given a detailed written feedback to those who presented in this particular track. Basically, the proposal, this is proposal track. So last but not least, I congratulate and thank conference chair, Professor Dr. Satish Kumar, conference co-chairs, Dr. Banu Sirisha, Dr. Naseem, Dr. Ramakrishna, Dr. Satish Tiwari, and all the technical review committee members, basically our faculty members from Finance and Accounting Department, and Professor D. Sadish, head of the Department of Finance and Accounting, for a well-organized conference. I repeat again, it was a well-organized, a successful conference. So this should be a benchmark for other conference chairs and conference co-chairs in future. That means 16th ICBF. So in our university, for the benefit of other delegates, our university planned for 16th next conference from next week onwards. So this is the practice we follow. So I congratulate once again the entire team, technical team, and research scholars, students. There are members from the students clubs also. I appreciate all of them and congratulate. I really appreciate you, all the team, for inviting a very distinguished speaker, Mr. Ashish Kumar Chauhan, as a chief guest for our valedictory session. So thank you very much. We are eager to listening to Ashish Kumar Chauhanji's lecture. Thank you very much.
Professor Shailajan, thank you very much for your insights and your motivation. Thank you for your support. Now I request Professor Ved sir to have a few words with us.
Thank you, Dr. Ramakrishna. Not in very good shape. Still, I'll go through my duty. Very, very enriching and fulfilling event. We have had several excellent speakers, starting with Professor Ashima Goyal the day before yesterday. Great paper presentations, rich deliberations, good networking. Thanks to all the participants who made this happen. Congratulations to the organizers led by Professor Satish and Dr. Satish Kumar for coordinating everything very seamlessly. And now we are going to close with a session with Ashish. I had the privilege of studying with him. He is not only a very knowledgeable person, he is also an excellent speaker, and he is one of the pioneers of introducing technology in stock markets in India. I'm sure that he will set the Ganges on fire when he speaks today. Thank you, Ashish, for being with us, and we are all very, very eagerly looking forward to listening to you.
Thank you, Ved sir. Now it's time to hear from our chief guest, Shri Ashish Kumar Chauhan ji. I request Ashish Kumar Chauhan ji. Thank you, sir. Thank you for being with us. I sourced the web and other places to write a brief description about Ashish Kumar ji, but it went into pages and pages. With very difficulty, I condensed it to hardly 200 words. So please give me an opportunity to introduce you to our participants, presenters, faculty members, and all. Your name is itself is a renowned one, but as a custom, as a tradition, please allow me to introduce you to all. So all the participants, Sri Ashish Kumar Chauhan ji is currently Managing Director and CEO of Bombay Stock Exchange of India. He earlier worked with the National Stock Exchange of India, and he is considered as a father of modern derivatives in India due to his work in National Stock Exchange of India. As Ved sir was saying, he is pioneer. He set up a fully automated screen-based trading system, and first commercial satellite communication network included NSE Nifty, and is instrumental in NSE certification courses. Hundreds and thousands of students are benefiting with these NSE certification courses now, which are really employable for them. Then before joining Bombay Stock Exchange of India, Sri Ashish Kumar ji worked with the Reliance Group as a Chief Information Officer, and joined a BSc as a Deputy CEO in the year 2009. Now, Sri Ashish Kumar ji in a BSc, a key step that he did is he took the BSc for a public issue, initial public offer, which was pending for more than 10 years. He was successful in running the IPO, and we all know the history of the IPO of Bombay Stock Exchange. He also instrumental in building the India's International Exchange at a gift city, Gandhinagar, Gujarat. And there are many areas or fields in which Sri Ashish Kumar ji contributed, and his contribution is recognized in the form of international and Indian awards from many organizations. So with this brief intro about Sri Ashish Kumar ji, I request him to address the audience here. Sir, Ashish Kumar sir, please.
Thank you, Professor Valedictory, Professor Sailajan, Professor D. Satish, Professor Satish Kumar, Professor Ramakrishnan, friends. It's a pleasure and honor to be in front of you speaking today at this International Conference on Business and Finance. In some ways, most of you, based on whatever I heard today morning, that most of you are either PhD students or are teaching in various places. So for me, when I was studying, and in some ways in academics, we get to hear about things, we get to look at things from a very distant, and we think that the outside world is moving very, very fast. And whatever we teach is actually implementable or executable instantly. But usually what happens is the life on face of it runs very slow. So each researcher who is researching on any area might think that his or her area would suddenly blow up and become very, very important. It is possible that it may become important, but it is possible that it may not become important, or it may not get used for a long time. That doesn't mean that your work is not useful. It is just that your time has not come. Yesterday, one of my brokers told me that everyone is a hero, and sometimes your movie gets released a little later. So I think all of us who are in academics, I am also a professor myself. I also sit on various boards of education institutions in India, including being the chancellor of Allahabad University. But basically for me, the academics are very, very important to any society in bringing those ideas, old and new, synthesizing them and presenting to them to the new generation who comes in with a perspective that these are all useful ideas and they can be moved in a different way. And so for me, if your area doesn't become important, don't get disheartened. Someday your idea will become important. In the meantime, you need to keep on searching newer and newer ideas so that you don't stay behind. In some ways, the expectations, as I told you, is very different when you are in academics. And when you go to the reality, the life actually moves at a much slower pace on surface. Below that, there is a lot of activity, and which portion or which part of the fish will jump out of the water and take a leap, you don't know. But till the time you don't see the water, broadly, the water movement, it's water is still, right? So that is one message I wanted to give you as academics, as people who teach students, is that whatever you teach is valuable, whatever you research is valuable. Have confidence, even if it is published in some papers, in some journals, important journals, not important journals. But how do you add value to yourself, and how do you go to basic principles, what I call first principles? My entire life has been about first principles, that how do we basically look at the life in essence, and then build up all our ideas, all our executions based on that. And for that, one of the most important aspects of life, which I have found, is about predicting future. Why predicting future is so much more important for finance and business, which is today's topic, but even for society, for life, for everything, is because future is where we are going to live, not the past. Past, we may have lived, we may not have lived, but future is where we are going to live. And that's where predicting future is what is absolutely important. Whatever we do, whatever anyone does, is basically about improving their future, predicting the future, and then improving their future, and so on and so forth. The prediction of future is what life's essence is. The second essence, which is even more interesting, and that's where the finance comes in, is the trust that the currency of future is not the currency you use. The currency of the future, currency of the society, is basically trust. Trust within two people in marriage, within a family, between children, parents, elders, youngers, larger families, societies, the cities, villages, and the international, right? And so the trust is of absolute essence. Without trust, you can't go into future. And if you try to go into future, that society without trust is anarchy. And for me, this too, if you remember, on first principle basis, whatever research you do going forward, if you just put them on these touchstones on basically the trust and future, broadly speaking, you will be benefited, your students will be benefited going forward. Somewhere on the line, finance for me is all about trust. That trust is so minute, so subtle, that it's very difficult to bring, and it's very easy to break. So somewhere on the line, the trust in your society's ability to manage itself, the law and order, the trust in law and order is more important than actual law and order, because you develop your perceptions and that is about trust. And so trust in law and order, trust in your currencies, trust in your institutions, trust in yourself, trust in your companies, their corporate governance, their future. And so the trust and future are the two sides of the same coin of what I call life. The second message I wanted to give you is look at the trends. The trend watching is an absolute of absolute importance, especially in modern world. Earlier, life used to happen slow, and trends also used to catch up slow. But today, the life is coming much faster, and I'll tell you why. But the trend watching is something you need to worry about every day, every part of your life. And also you need to train your students in watching those trends. You've heard Professor Ashima Goel, you've heard of the monetary policy. And today, the US is trying to tighten its monetary policy. Just to give you a perspective, last quarter, US grew at around 6% per annum basis. And that's a very large number on an absolute basis. On a $66,000 per capita income, 6% is almost per person they are adding $3,700. And our entire per person income is less than $3,000, right? So they are adding our per capita income into their personal per capita income. Already they are 33 times larger. And so if you look at all these numbers, you get really dazzled and impressed, saying, what is happening? Why do I need to check this out? And that's where basically for me, one of the larger trends, since my studies, as Professor Valedictory said, we studied together. And since then, I've been hugely interested in what we call the government finances, that how do they manage their finances and how do they affect all of us on day-to-day basis. And because our wealth, our store of wealth, that is money, our transaction volumes, our cost of living life, inflation, all this are basically dependent, our salaries, and everyone's, not only academics, but everyone's salaries are also hugely dependent on this. What is it that the trend suggests? Why did that trend come about? And what happened to that trend? And what's probably going to happen? And so to cut the long story short, earlier, the banks in say 1850s, 1860s could issue their own promissory notes. So if you look at the Indian currency, the RBI governor has signed below, and it says, "मैं धारक को 100 रुपया अदा करने का वचन देता हूँ. I promise to pay ₹100." Then if it's a promise, where is the 100 rupees, right? And that is the promissory note the banks used to give in most countries, including in US, in 1850s, 1860s, and they used to create their own currencies in a way, because that promissory note you could pass on to somebody else, and then to somebody else, and so then to somebody else, and that's how they became basically the currency which is used to buy things, sell things, and so on and so forth. And at some point in time, those banks started giving more, issuing more currencies than the gold they had in the backing, and there was a bubble burst, and somewhere in the line, the central government, that is the Federal Reserve, was given the authority to issue those currencies. And why I'm telling you this story, the story may be wrong in parts, but overall, in terms of getting the message across, that what is today happening is that a new technology is coming where you can issue 100 different types of currencies, and I can issue millions and billions types of different currencies. And if you believe, then it is a currency. If you don't believe, there is no currency. But effectively, all of us, if we can issue trillions of different types of currencies, none of them have value. They are more like our monopoly currencies in our house where we play games with our children. And so be aware that this entire issue of currency, central currencies, and then post World War II, in Bretton Woods, the new world architecture, financial architecture was created. Many of us are not taught that, but it's a very important part that World Bank, IMF, the central banks, and then the commercial banks below them were created based on the understanding based on the technology, based on the economic books, which were written 100 years back. And based on that framework, and some of the brightest minds created those frameworks. And so around 1945, 1950, the new financial architecture of the world came in place. And it lasted for almost 20, 25 years. But the imbalances started coming up. And there was a huge inflation because all the currencies were actually fixed. And in 1972, on 15th August, we are actually in 2022, so we are celebrating 50th year of Richard Nixon's announcement that the gold will no longer be the backing for US dollars. The US dollar will not, when you register back the US dollars, the US government was supposed to give you so much of gold, which no longer will happen. And after that, it became free floating. But free floating became basically nothing backing it except the government power, or it's called fiat currency, issued out of the fiat of the government, not the Premier Padmini fiat, but the fiat means the power of the government. And that's where basically there was no backing, there was no physical constraint on issuance. After 1972, what we have seen is huge issuance of currencies in circulation or otherwise. And that has created tremendous amount of inflation. If you take that as a base, 1972, 15th August, probably you can take it slightly ahead because people knew it's coming, that government of US is going to renege on its commitment. But effectively, that is where 1972 and pre and post, you can see that inflation and so on and so forth have increased. And that's what now you are basically observing, that large portion of what US growth rate is and the rest of the world's growth rate is actually subjected to or is subject to the inflation. And then because all of us calculate our GDP in US dollars, but if itself is sort of being diluted, then what happens? And so across the world, this trend over the last 50 years is happening, that slowly more and more currencies are coming, chasing the same number of assets, same number of goods. Of course, assets are also increasing, but not as fast as what the currencies are increasing or currency issuations are increasing. So there is a sort of a trend of inflation. And that somewhere on the line, monetary tightening that happens, if it happens, then the growth rate comes down. And so this is one thing I wanted all of you to observe. Time is limited, so I don't want to take up much time on this particular aspect of creating trust using the monetary policy. Earlier, the trust was that the prices will not move. Now the trust is that whenever there is a crisis, whether man-made or viral crisis, the government across the world will pump in money and ensure the asset prices don't go down. If asset prices don't go down, then the inflation happens because you put in a lot of money. And if inflation goes up, then the poor people who are actually having no assets or very little assets, they have to work harder to maintain their lifestyle. While the rich people who have assets, actually their wealth increases. So you keep on hearing about the Gini coefficient going up for most countries is because of that reason. The monetary policy is the sole reason. And across the world, it has been found easy by the governments to not tax rich people, at the same time provide people with the perception that everything is hunky-dory. And that's where this trend of inflation is to be watched. And because of this inflation and the entire monetary issuances, a new framework of cryptocurrencies and all has come, which is trying to say that the normal current currencies are bubble currencies. Ours will not go beyond a number of specific points, and that's why they are better. But you can actually issue more bitcoins or more whatever, and literally billions of different numbers of different series, and literally there is no end to that. So effectively, you need to understand the context of that. The second part, which is even more interesting, is demographics. Many of the growth of the countries also depend on the demographics of the countries. So, for example, Japan has become old. But when it was young, it was growing very, very fast. And then when it became slightly older, it's kind of went down. 1989, Nikkei was 39,000. Nikkei index was 39,000. Today, it is around 25, 28,000 or something close to that. Last 32 years or 33 years, it has not reached, it's now at 60%, whereas their GDP of Japan has moved from $3 trillion to $5 trillion. But from 1950s to 1989, they saw a huge growth, but the markets went up even higher. And so you need to be aware that because Japan became older, the demand came down, people who can learn newer technologies came down, and so on and so forth. Similarly, Europe has become old, America has become old, China has become suddenly old, and India is a very large young country with technological prowess and the young population which thinks it can handle any technology. Young population allows you to learn newer technology as a society. A young population also is working population, so they work hard and produce things. They also demand newer things. At my age, I don't require new phone every year, but my son at age 20 requires newer clothes. I mean, I usually wear probably 10-year-old clothes, and I want even probably some of my pants are 25-year-old. And so it's a mindset, but also the young people consume more, demand more, and that's where the consumption as well as production happens more out of the young population. India is a pretty large country, pretty much almost 18% of world population, and is going to be young for next 30-40 years. And so one trend is of the broadly loose monetary policy. The second trend is of the demographics, where the rest of the world is getting older, and older societies require more healthcare, more spend on medicine, more young people are required to take care of the old people, and so on and so forth. So if countries which are poor want to come up in their economic life cycle, then they may try to support the populations in the older countries if they are rich by sending their people or by taking care of their needs, sitting in the places that they want. The third and the largest trend, in my opinion, which has been there for last since the mankind has been there, is the technology. The technology is the only change that happens in the world. I mean, even the monetary framework is a technology in a way, a social technology. So for me, the technology is the only change that happens in the world. And technology used to spread slowly over literally hundreds of generations. Like first technology probably was how to control fire. Fire was always there even before mankind came. But how to start a fire at will, how to stop it at will, how to confine it into a place, how to use it as a weapon, how to use it to cook food, how to use it to get warmth, how to use it to frighten the wild animals and save yourself from wild animals and things like that. Basically, fire as a technology was one of the first technologies which mankind invented. And it was so useful. But the societies which did not adapt to that slowly became irrelevant, they started withering away. And the societies which adapted to the new technology of fire, they started taking over other technologies, larger land and so on and so forth. And that's where the fires, but it fired took pretty much 1 million years across the world to spread across almost all mankind. And those people who did not adapt to that, who were not Homo sapiens or even Homo sapiens, went down. And then the new technologies like wheel or metallurgy and all that came. And that's where basically newer and newer technologies came. They took smaller and smaller time to spread across the world. But still the spreading was probably tens of thousands of years, 1,000 years, and including, say, invention of decimal system, which was invented in India, took probably 2,000-3,000 years to spread across the world. And it was a kind of a conceptual technology, but it was nevertheless a technology. Accounting system is another technology. And so there are many technologies which took long time, thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years to spread across the world. But there has been a trend that the technologies are coming faster and faster. Earlier, it used to take, say, 10 lakh years, then it became 1 lakh year to spread, then it became 1,000 years, then it became 600 years. And that's where the Industrial Revolution came across the world, which in a period of, say, 500 to 600 years, changed the world. And within the Industrial Revolution, a lot of things happened. New weapons got invented, newer things got invented, new ways of manufacturing, new ways of transportation, everything got invented. And within the Industrial Revolution, the world created more wealth than what was created 10,000 years before that. The entire humankind, the history of mankind, whatever wealth they got created, only just a small period of 500-600 years of Industrial Revolution created. Just to give you an Indian perspective, India used to produce almost 35% or sometimes 50% of world GDP in year 1000 AD. Just 1000 years back, India used to produce 50% of world GDP because India was the technological king of the world. Metallurgy, decimal systems, medical systems, manufacturing systems. We were all pioneers of that. But then that technology started spreading out to the rest of the world using various attacks. And those people learned, the Europe learned, the Gulf learned, and then they came, attacked us, they subjugated us. But effectively, when the Britishers came, 1000 AD is when the Islam came to India, Islam started attacking. That time, India used to be 50 to 33% of world GDP. When the Britishers came to India around 1650, India used to account for 25% of world GDP, 25 to 33. But within 300 years, when the British went out in 1950, India accounted for 2% of world GDP. Imagine from 50% to 2%. It's not that India's wealth was looted. Wealth gets looted, it doesn't matter actually that much. What matters is your production, because GDP is about production, not about wealth. And so they looted our wealth, but they also created newer ways to produce, newer ways to subjugate you, so that you had to send cotton to them, so that they could send you the new clothes back. And so basically, the hypothesis which I have is that the technology of Industrial Revolution created many things India left behind for 1000 years, from year 1000 AD to 1947 or 1950, almost 1000 years. And from, if our GDP as a percent of world GDP went down from 50% to 2% of world GDP, right? And that's a huge chunk, largely because we did not evolve newer technologies, largely because we did not create newer methods of production, newer methods to protect ourselves, and so on and so forth. And that's where, in the meantime, the waves of technology, which were coming slower across generations, started coming faster and faster. And now the waves of technology are becoming much faster. And that's where basically what used to happen in hundreds of years or thousands of years is now happening in literally 20, 30 years. It will start happening in 5 years each. The waves are coming faster and faster, the technology waves, and the wealth gets created out of those technology waves. And who can create those waves? Young people who can learn newer technologies, whom all of you teach, because young people are taught by their elders, that is the teachers, and that's how they come into the market. They create that wealth using newer and newer technology. They learn, create newer technology, then it goes to academia, then comes back through the next generation and so on and so forth. And that's where the role of academia is absolutely important. But the trend of technology is so much more powerful today that my hypothesis is that the next 50 years will create more wealth than the world has created in last 10,000 years, including Industrial Revolution. So more wealth will be created in next 50 years. And who will create those wealth? The societies which have more awareness, more adaptation to those technologies, who have younger people who can learn those newer technologies. And that's where I have a hope. And I think it's happening in front of our eyes, that India is going to play a large role going forward. And that's where with 18% of world population, India will probably produce 25% of more wealth that is coming. And today we have around $10 trillion of wealth compared to the world's $360 trillion of wealth. So we are close to 3% of world's wealth. We will go at the end of next 50 years, after creating 25% of more wealth, we will go from $10 trillion to probably $100 trillion of wealth. The world will go from $360 trillion to $720 trillion. So we'll be almost 15% of world's wealth, and around 18% of world population will be just what I call middle income, middle wealth country. But our income will be slightly higher than that middle part of it, because of the way we are going to use technology, the way the technology is going to manifest itself in creating that wealth. So I just wanted to give you in a short period of around 30 minutes, which was scheduled today for me, that please look at those trends. Don't get disheartened if your research area does not come into focus today. It will probably come tomorrow. But look at those trends, worry about trust, worry about future. These are the only two things that keep the societies together, that allow the technology to create wealth. And the demographics is very favorable to India. The monetary policies can actually take a tailspin, and the world might have to create a new world order in terms of the finance or money part of it. But I think that is slightly far away, probably a few decades, if not more. But eventually, the technology is the only change agent, and the societies actually surround it. And India is in a great place to create tremendous amount of wealth going forward. I hope this was useful to all of you. And going forward, all of you will start thinking on these lines. Thank you very much.
Very useful, Ashish. You have spoken like a true scholar.
Thank you very much, sir. Ashishji, what I see on my screen and what I hear, I think I am hearing two different things. On screen, I am seeing an elder person, but what I'm hearing is a young techie who talks about the future communication. And maybe because of this, you were able to create so much of innovations and radical things in stock exchanges or the places where you work. Thank you very much, sir. Now floor is open. If any of you have anything to ask or share with Ashish Kumar ji, please go ahead.
May I, sir?
Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for your nice insights about the economy. You talked about demography, trust, and the technology. And it is the technology that going forward, it will create wealth. So we have seen in 2000 when IT boom was there, a lot of wealth was created. Do you think the same amount of wealth or same trend we can see from the digital side of the world going forward?
See, for me, technology is not only digital, not only IT. Technology is also accounts. Technology is also decimal system. Okay. Technology is also things which were not done before. A new way to organize ourselves, or new ways of doing the old things, right? So for me, the technology is slightly broader than what is being tom-tommed or what is there in our minds. That technology means IT. To give you, I have been told by one of the publishing house to give them 10 themes of the future. Time is not there, but basically that's what I try to expound on. Just to give you perspective, there are at least 20-30 technologies which, when I stand today, are looking very promising. But after 5 years, some of them will drop out, and 20-30 new will come up, because the technologies actually ride on each other. The newer technologies come not in vacuum, but because another technology has come, and based on the past knowledge, a new technology comes. So currently, I'll give you some of the examples of what is happening. Say robots. Robots are just now toys for most of us as Indians. That we see good robots, we see their videos and things. But robots are going to be used also in fights. Instead of people fighting, they're going to send their robots and fight. And in one of the conferences in US, somebody asked me that India is so behind in robotics. How will you win against China? And I said that I may not be currently creating robots, but I have hope that in future my fellow countrymen will produce robots. In the meantime, we have smart brains who will hack the robots of China and make them fight against each other rather than us. And so effectively, basically, what you need to figure out is robotics is going to change life fundamentally, like the way hardware has changed, like the way software is changing our life fundamentally. But robotics is also is a mix of hardware, software, very different ways. Similarly, drones. Today, most of us in most large cities in India, across the world, are stuck in traffic jam all the time. If you had an ability to at least have your car getting lifted for, say, 100 meters on the road, probably traffic jam will be less, right? But at the same time, you might have accidents where you will fall from 100 meters and you may not have sort of ability to survive. So all those issues also you'll have, but drones are going to pick up not only the medicines and deliver to other places, but also pick up humans and transport them in different places. Similarly, genetic modification. Genetic modification, you know, it has brought huge problems to the world. The COVID has basically, most of us believe that it has been genetically modified thing, which is the most benign explanation is that it spread out accidentally from a Wuhan lab. But many people also feel that it was actually spread intentionally to bring the world down in a particular time. And so somewhere on the line, genetic modification also is going to change life fundamentally. Many of us currently are living, average life expectancy of India is 69 years. But when India became independent, you know how much was average life expectancy? It was 39 years. If India population has gone up 3.5 times in last 72 years or 75 years, half of it is due to just good medicines. Because the life expectancy has gone from 39 to 69 years and almost doubled, right? And so effectively almost half is not because of the birth rate, but because of the lowering of death rate compared to what was expected on the same population. And so genetic modification is going to make you probably live 150 years. Currently you're living 70 years. Imagine most people living 150 years. Then there will be social issues. People who wait for their parents to die so that their wealth comes to the children will have to now wait longer, right? And so there are many interesting social issues which may come up if people start living longer. Similarly, big data, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, it may change the way the manufacturing happens. Today, the scale is very important. Tomorrow, the scale may not be that important if you are able to manufacture on the run. The solar energy, which is not so fancy, is going to change life quite a lot. You will be able to stay in a place where you don't even need the grid. The mobile phone has changed life, right? And so there are 20, 30 such technologies which I monitor on daily basis and keep on adding, deleting, because that's my hobby. I try to kind of big data, again, cloud computing and so on and so forth. But there are literally hologram is coming where similarly virtual reality, what they call enhanced reality, virtual reality and so on and so forth. So you might spend more time going forward in virtual reality than real reality, because real reality is very painful. Virtual reality, you can be sitting in Kashmir or wherever you feel like, or basically gaming, and all of them combining will create even more interesting future. The hypothesis I have is that the wealth earlier in Akbar's time, say Akbar's time or Prithviraj Chauhan's time, was physical. Everything was physical. If Akbar had to listen to a good music, he had to have tansen physically. If you have to listen to a good music, you just open up your mobile and you have a great music better than what Akbar could do, right? So you are richer than Akbar in some ways. And so the logical wealth is going to be so much more than the physical wealth. You will be staying in a very poor background, a very sort of bad sanitation, but you might be still in your mind, you might be working, or you might be having a great time playing a game in heaven or whatever, right? And so a lot of life is going to change, a lot of perceptions are going to change, and we in academics need to be aware and catch the trend before the world catches. One of the larger issues with academic is we are used to driving our cars based on the rear view mirror. We look at the past that is collected, past information, past knowledge which is gathered. Like we teach the economics of 150-year-old. Even our best academics who are teaching in America, Indian origin, whom we worship, publish great papers, are generally, those papers are also useless, their ideas are also useless, but nobody actually dares to basically tell them that it is wrong. Because the world has moved fast. Our academics have not kept pace with that, our academic knowledge. And so how do we anticipate as academicians? How do we anticipate all these changes, create our own theories? And you are not wrong, I can tell you that. Don't be under the impression that anyone who has written a large book, or old book, which we are taught, was smart. He was smart in his own context, 150 years back or 200 years back. Even the smartest person 25 years back is not smart today. So you need to create an anticipation of what is coming, create your own ideas about it, listen to this kind of in seminars and other things, make your own meaning of the world and teach your children, teach your students how to make meaning of the world for the future. As I told you, all the endeavors of life is about future, and the trust is required to create a society which is not anarchic. If India remains non-violent, organized, a trustworthy society, we are going to enjoy that wealth, which has never been seen before. But I hope this gave you an idea about the question you asked.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I guess it's time already. We exceeded. It starts 8 minutes of additional time. Shailajan sir, you have any comments?
No, Ramakrishna, you can go ahead. Thank you.
Ved sir.
Very good speech, Ashish. Thank you very much for enlightening us. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ashish Kumar Chauhan ji. Sir, thank you very much for being with us this afternoon, taking time from your busy schedule and enlightening all other presenters, faculty members, and all. Deep-hearted thanks from all of us, sir. Now it's time for us to move to award the distribution ceremony. Sir, if you have a time, you can be with us for a few more minutes.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yeah. So now it's time for us to distribute awards. So it is a very difficult and a very tough task for us to choose the best papers. So in the total process, we had 3 different tracks. One is for research papers, second one is the case studies, and third one is the thesis. So from each category, we have prizes. For first best case, then thesis, then best research papers, we have 3 prizes, sir. Now I take this opportunity to announce the prizes. First, we go with the award for the best case. And this award is been bestowed to Vijay Kittu Vandana and Khalid Lubza Nihar for their case study on fund managers and their skin in the game, the case of Indian mutual funds. We congratulate Vijay Kittu Vandana and Khalid Lubza. And for this case winners, they have a cash prize of 5,000 rupees. Next, we take this opportunity to bestow an award for the best thesis proposal. And the best thesis proposal award goes to K. Navyata for her paper on IPO's pricing in India, a study. Congratulations, Navyata. Your paper has been awarded as the best thesis. And
Thank you.
and now it's time to announce the prize for the award of the best paper. So in a best paper 3 award, we are awarding this paper to Sangram Kesari Jana and et al. For their paper titled Integration between Emerging Market Equity and Global Markets. Is it a fundamental or noisy? Evidence from wavelet denoised volatility spillover analysis in time and frequency domain. I congratulate Sangram Kesari Jana for this award.
Thank you so much, sir.
You will be bestowed with a cash prize of rupees 5,000. Then comes the best paper award for second. So this award is bestowed to Himanshu et al. For their research paper titled "Do the COVID pandemic and external auditors influence earnings manipulation? Evidence from India." I congratulate Himanshu and his co-authors. And Himanshu and co-authors get rupees 10,000 cash prize for this paper. And now it's time to announce the most prestigious and the most highly competitively placed paper, best research award paper. That is, the first prize goes to Nemiraju Jadiappa for his research paper titled Bankruptcy Law, Creditors' Rights and Dividend Policy. Evidence from Quasi-Natural Experiment. And for this award, Nemiraju will get a cash prize of rupees 25,000. And we congratulate Nemiraju Jadiappa for achieving this.
Thank you, sir.
So these are the winners. And for us at conference committee, it has become very difficult to choose the best paper awards or case studies or thesis proposals. Now, I take this opportunity to invite Professor Banu Sirisha to say a vote of thanks and conclude the ICBF 2022 session. Banu Sirisha, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. A very good afternoon to one and all present here. It is said that gratitude is the attitude that takes you to your altitude. We, the convening team of the conference, the chair, Dr. Satish Kumar, and the co-chairs, Dr. Ramakrishna, Dr. Naseem Ahmed, Dr. Satish Tiwari, and myself, feel privileged to propose a vote of thanks on this occasion. As said by some eminent personality, no duty is more urgent than that of returning thanks. I, on behalf of the convening team and the entire crew of the Department of Finance and Accounting, take this opportunity to place on record this formal vote of thanks. Someone said truly that gratitude is one of the least articulates of the emotions, especially when it is deep. We would like to extend our deepest sense of appreciation to all the guest speakers of the conference, Dr. Ashima Goel, Dr. Ramkumar Kakani, Dr. Ved Purishwar, Dr. Pat Obi, Dr. Sabri Bobakar, Dr. Nupur Pavanbang, and Shri Ashish Kumar Chauhan for their insightful talks. We are indeed grateful to all the speakers for sparing their valuable time to be with us on this occasion. Nothing is more honorable than a grateful heart. We are grateful to the generous contributions of all our sponsors. The platinum sponsor, Punjab National Bank, the diamond sponsor, McGraw-Hill Publishers, and the gold sponsors, HDFC Bank and Kotak Mahindra Bank. Blessed are those who can give without remembering. We express our sincere thanks by name to the noble souls for encouraging us to conduct this event. Dr. Mahinder Reddy, Vice Chancellor IFHE, Dr. Vijay Lakshmi, Registrar IFHE, Dr. Ved Puriswar, Senior Advisor IFHE, Dr. Shailajan, Dean Academics, ICFAI Business School, and Dr. Nagar Reddy sir, who's an eminent academician and a mentor par excellence from the Department of Finance. Our heartfelt thanks to you, Madam and Sirs, for your continuous support and cooperation. I remember to have read somewhere that if you see no reason for giving thanks, the fault lies within you. And we do not intend to default. We, the convening team, take this opportunity to extend our sincere thanks to all our guest invitees who, without a second thought, have accepted to chair the different track sessions. Our heartfelt thanks to you, ladies and gentlemen, for gracing this event. An event of this dimension cannot happen overnight. The wheels started rolling months in advance. It required meticulous planning and execution with an eye for detail and a bird's eye view for the image of ICBF. The efforts put in by all the members of the department are noteworthy. We express our sincere gratitude to Dr. D. Satish, Head Department of Finance and Accounting, for helping us throughout. We are indeed thankful to all the members of the Finance Department for their support and helping in designing and developing the program with their insightful thoughts, creative ideas, and constructive criticism, which have all contributed hugely. We cannot thank everyone enough for the involvement they have shown and the willingness they have expressed to take on the completion of the task beyond their comfort zones. Thank you, team. Our heartfelt thanks to all the student members of Club Prayas for their continued support, help, and in all the technical aspects, designing and creating the banners and certificates, and also for their extensive coverage of the event through their own social media handles. We're also greatly thankful to our backend support, which includes Mr. Sanjit Datta, Ms. Julie, and their team of the Case Research Center for designing and compiling the Book of Abstracts for the conference, Mr. Srinivas Raj and his team of the IT and Web Designing Department for taking care of the conference webpage as well as the payments window, Mr. Sudhakar Rao, Mr. Srinivas Rao, and their team of the Branding Department for the creation of brochures and flyers, and also for their extensive coverage of the event on all the social media platforms. And Mr. Bharadwaja, Ms. Ratnabhanu, Ms. Saraswati, and the entire accounts department for their extended support, not just limited to the accounting and recording, but in almost all the arenas. We have been fortunate enough to be backed by such a team, which is very motivated and dedicated, which is consisting of very motivated and dedicated staff who know their job and are result oriented. Thank you, everyone. We also thank all the students of IBS Hyderabad for their active participation in the event and also for helping us cover the event through their own social media handles. We often take for granted the very things that most deserve our gratitude and appreciation. Yes, I do intend the wonderful audience and the participants who have turned up in such overwhelming numbers. We, the convening team, take this opportunity to specifically thank you all for your patience and cooperation through all the sessions and the tracks, making our event a grand success. Last but not the least, we extend our thanks to all the invisible hands who have wished well for the conference and indirectly supported for its success. To conclude, we would like to reiterate that without your support and encouragement, we would not have made it happen. We look forward to your continued support and your gracious participation when we conduct the 16th ICBF. We sincerely hope we have respite from the pandemic and will meet each other face to face. Thank you.
Now it's time to say alvida to everyone who are presented here. Thank you very much. And we hope to see you all in our next conference. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.